The first thing that I do when I want to switch it out to toy is see where all of the activation points are. So anything that I can press on or turn that makes the toy turn on. On this toy, all of the buttons on the side, the numbers, are activation points.
Number 1.
But these buttons on the side, you're only going to get 1 or 2 functions out of them.
Number 1.
So they only do a couple things. If you switch it up to that switch, a kid's going to get tired of it pretty quickly. But it also has this right here in the palm tree. And when we turn this, we get songs and a lot of other functions. So this is typically the switch that I like to target. But I'm going to go ahead and open the whole toy up just to show you guys what it looks like. So the only thing that I've done on this toy so far is take out all the screws on the back side. And this is what it looks like. On a side note, every single toy on the Fisher Price Linkimals collection has a little black switch that looks like this. It's usually near the bottom of the toy. And the only thing that this switch does is say the name of the animal that the toy is. So even though it's usually one that's easy to target, we don't really want to adapt to that because, like I said, again, we want to find a switch that has more than one function.
Koala.
So up here in the palm tree, that's the switch that I was talking about in the front. That is what makes this turn on. If we wanted to target the switches that are the number buttons on the front, you'd have to adapt to this circuit board. And it's a little bit more complicated. And again, it's just not worth it because we're not getting a whole lot of use out of those numbers. So to target the switches in the palm tree, you actually don't have to touch any of these screws that are on the purple part of the koala. The only 4 screws you're going to need to remove are these 4 right here in the back of the palm tree. Once you open it up, you're going to see that switch that I showed you guys, and it's secured by a little screw, so you can go ahead and take that out and pop the switch right out of that little space that it's in. Once you have it out, you can use the end of your wire strippers to just go ahead and cut it right off. Before we can connect that switch wiring with our new mono jack cable, we have to drill a hole in the toy so that there's an output. I usually like to go in right here on this spot. Once you've got your hole, you can go ahead and feed that mono jack cable right through. When there is room in the toy, which in this case there is, I like to tie a knot on the other side just in case that cable gets pulled on. The next thing we need to do is take our wire strippers and pull off about a 1/2 inch of coating, that plastic coating, from each of these 4 wires so that we can twist them together. Same thing on this side. Same thing on this side. Now we're just going to take 1 wire from each set and twist them together. So I'm going to start with the red and the blue, and I like to make just a little bit of an X right there, kind of cross them over, and then start twisting. Same thing with the white and the black one. Cross them over like an X, start twisting. Now we're just going to take 1 wire from each set and twist them together. So I'm going to start with the red and blue. Now we're just going to take 1 wire from each set and twist them together. So I'm going to start with the red and the blue, and I like to make just a little bit of an X right there, kind of cross them over, and then start twisting. Same thing with the white and the black one. Cross them over like an X. Start twisting. I'm just going to take one wire from each side and twist them together. So I'm going to start with the red and blue, and I like to make just a little bit of an X right there, cross them over, and then start twisting. This is what you should have when you're done. Now is when I take my soldering iron and my solder and just give those connections a nice silver coating. If you don't have this yet, you can always cover the connections with some electrical tape, but it might not be quite as secure. This is not an option that you'll have if you are adapting to a switch that is a circuit board, however. Also, you should be doing this in a well-ventilated area. You can use a fan and kind of blow the fumes away from you. It's not as big of a concern for me when I'm doing wiring like this because it's really quick, but especially if I'm doing like a circuit board and I need more time to do the soldering. So you're just touching the solder to the wiring and the soldering iron at the same time until you see that silver coating. Should look a little something like that. And then I do still like to take a piece of electrical tape and make a little bit of a flag over each connection just so that they're separate from one another. Once you've done that, you can tuck your wiring back into the toy where it's out of the way and put it back together. Alright, I screwed that back together, so I'm going to turn it on and plug in an adaptive switch to our connection we made up here. And that's it. You're good to go. And the cool thing about the Linkimals, again, even if you have one that's adapted, another that's not, they can still pair up. So if you have different Linkimals, you can get use out of all of those just from adapting one switch on one toy.